The thing I love most about this rivalry, everybody's wrong until the result comes in.
They always say, throw out the records when it comes to this rivalry. On that day, you have to prove that you're the better team in the state of Michigan.
I don't get why both teams can't be great at the same time. It doesn't always have to be one or the other.
I love you, man, but you're an idiot. A Michigan State podcast. And here's your hosts, Justin Rose and Michael Spath.
Happy Victory Monday for both the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans. Justin Rose, Michael Spath with you on the penultimate episode. If this
during football season.
For football season of I love you, but you're an idiot. Michigan knocks off Ohio State, third straight year, first time since
95, 97.
There you go. Michigan State loses horribly at Ford Field, but they get their guy in Jonathan Smith. So a new era is upon us here. Michael, first and foremost, you were at the game. You sent a selfie out to the Twitter world with the scoreboard in the background. The field was flooded. You were with your brother. It looked like you had an absolutely epic time at the game. And I called you an idiot on Twitter, but that's because I love you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a lot of fun. Obviously, it was a very different field than 2 years ago. The energy was different. I don't know if I'd said this on the pod last week or not, but I felt there was a lot of vitriol there's a little pent up frustration and anger from Michigan fans directed at essentially the world. And the Buckeyes were going to be on the on the other end of that. And I actually was surprised because I didn't think that, at least in our section, maybe a little bit of verbal back and forth, but I saw a lot of Buckeyes before the game, and it wasn't like people were throwing haymakers at them or anything like that. I think it was more so they were supporting their team. I thought the environment was outstanding, the noise level. It didn't lead to a lot of false starts or delay of games, but I thought the noise level was really good. Actually, going back and watching the game, second time on Sunday, I thought it was really loud. So it was a lot of fun. It was strange because 2 years ago, the way that Hassan Haskins was moving the football, the offensive line was moving the football against Michigan, you just kept on feeling like, hey, whatever Ohio State throws at us, like they just don't have a chance because we're just running down their throat. And then last year, certainly in the second half, the explosive plays from Donovan Edwards, Michigan got a big interception from Taylor Upshaw late in the game to seal it, and it was kind of a blowout. This one was so close the entire game, and so the nerves. I mean, you've been in that environment when everything's on the line, and this year maybe more so than any time in the history of the game because of the ramifications of it. And so until that final interception by Rod Moore, God, man, I mean, you're almost sweating, dripping, even though it was 30 degrees outside and freezing cold because of just so much anticipation, anxiety, all that. And when he picked it off, you started to erupt, and then for the seventh time, I don't know about watching the game on TV, but how many instant replays were there? 5, 6, 7?
And so they were all razor thin.
Yeah.
Like Roman Wilson's touchdown, I'm watching that at home, and I'm going, that could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he crossed the goal line, right? It was, and then the one late with did he catch it and then fumbled? It was an incomplete pass.
Right.
And honestly, they didn't really show the Rod Moore interception they showed one quick replay. Watching it on replay at home, it was very clear that he intercepted that ball. So that was not
right. But it was close. It was close. He intercepted it.
He was diving to the ground. So every time they do that, they're going to. But man, what a feeling! As soon as it was over with, with my brother, my sister-in-law, some other friends, high-fiving, trying to rush the field. It was hard to get down there, and so I didn't end up rushing the field. I think my brother and sister-in-law did. But yeah, it was 12 weeks of. It's so hard to go 12-0.
It's so hard to go.
So hard to go 12-0. Then you have the last 3 weeks without Jim Harbaugh. You have everybody calling Michigan cheaters, and Michigan fans, and I'm one of them who essentially said, "Look, man, if you go out there and beat Ohio State, it's vindication, right? If you don't, we talked about this last week. If you don't, you're opening Pandora's box to say
the implosion is almost
to say you can't beat them without Connor Stalions. That's what everybody's narrative is. And so after this one, you get to say hey, take all that and shove it down your whatever, right? At least for these last 3 games, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, no Connor Stalions on the sideline, no nothing. They beat those 3 teams, 2 top 10 teams. They beat Ohio State. So, it was validation. I think JJ McCarthy said it afterwards. It wasn't about proving anybody else wrong. It was essentially just proving themselves right.
Can I just tell you how I give a lot to like the Michigan fan base, right? And call you guys arrogant and, like all sorts of I own that, right? JJ McCarthy, if more Michigan Wolverines acted like JJ McCarthy in that post-game press conference from TV, I don't think I could say anything. Did you hear what he said?
No, I did not.
He was all class. He stood up there and he's like, what a great win for the program. Like, we worked really hard. All the, coach speaky things. And he said, that Ohio State team, they're a great bunch of guys, great bunch of players. Like, hats off to them for giving us a really good, class. Like, it was all class. And like everything I've seen from JJ, whether it's an NIL thing, dealing with friends of mine that are in the media or in the digital marketing world, everybody says JJ is just a class act, dude. Yeah. And he just kind of rises above any of that, because here's the thing. You got Roman Wilson afterwards saying, taking his like nasty little shot. Like, you won the game. Just shut up.
Yeah, I've always
that's the part where it's like, now to the victor goes the spoils.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, and it is fun to kind of,
I wonder how much of Roman Wilson and anybody else that talked trash after the game was all that pent up frustration, all of that. Like, we've been listening to you guys tarnish us and trash us for 6 weeks now. And so I'm going to have my moment and I'm going to say what I want to say. To that end, to that point though, you're right. The way that JJ did it, my dad used to always tell me, and this went all the way back to Little League Baseball, man. He would say, when you win, the sweetest thing you can do is go and shake their hands, look them in the eye because they know they're defeated and you know that you've just won, and then you don't need to say anything.
Right.
You celebrate with your teammates, you walk off because they're devastated. And if you saw Ryan Day walk up the tunnel and they had the view of him as Michigan was celebrating and they were showing Sharon Moore doing the interview, like Ryan Day looked like a man that's suffering from, nightmares. Like, he was, his shoulders were sloped, his head was down. I mean, he looked like a man that was just like, I don't want to say, on death row, because he's not. I don't think that they're going to fire him, but he looked like, what do I got to do?
Right.
Like, what do I got to do? Like, they're not.
I know what he has to do. He has to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
He has to, the play calling and some of the decisions that he made from a coaching perspective, not good. And this is kind of par for the course for him over the last couple of years in big games. Now, they've won 50 of them. 50-0 against everybody not named Michigan, and 0-3.
Yeah,
in that span. Well,
I think
so. It's wild that how could he even be close to being on the hot seat?
Well, he's 50-7 actually. He's 7 against AP top 25 teams.
Correct. I'm not saying they haven't, but my point is against the Big Ten.
Right.
Against the Big Ten.
Right. He's undefeated against the Big Ten except for Michigan.
I think it's wild. Like, we were talking about this the other day at work, and somebody was saying like, yeah, Ryan Day, he can't beat Michigan. John Cooper got the same treatment. I'm like, first of all, college football is a much different world back at that point. Yeah. And also, who are you going to go and hire to come into Ohio State that's a better choice than a 50-3 Big Ten record?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It's
like, you're not going anywhere.
No, and it's not Jim Knowles, or defensive coordinator. I mean, Texas A&M is going to get Mike Elko from Duke. I mean, we'll get into Michigan State here in a second, and their great hire of Jonathan Smith. But it's not even college basketball. I think college basketball has a little bit of like a minor league system. You go and coach in a mid-major.
Yep.
You prove yourself. You win some tournament games. You show that you can be a high-level coach, and then you jump to like a Power 5. In the Power 5 in college football, especially at the Giants, the Jim Harbaughs don't just exist out there anymore, right? Like, so who would Urban Meyer or who would Ohio State try to go get? They wouldn't get Urban Meyer. Clearly, Urban Meyer's not interested in coming back and coaching college football. Maybe they can throw out the John Gruden talk once again, but I think John Gruden is persona non grata out there.
Why would you want that?
Like Josh McDaniels, like you'd almost want someone from the NFL, but transitioning from the NFL to college is no easy task. So no, I think they're stuck. They're stuck with him, which Michigan
that's a good place to be.
It is
stuck.
A good place, yeah.
And like the same thing that Michigan State fans say about Michigan, like Harbaugh's recent success the last 3 seasons. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have told you no way. Like, keep him there. Like, we would joke the first couple seasons when Michigan State was still beating Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, like, give him a lifetime contract. Ha 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 ha. I'm sure there's Michigan fans saying, give Ryan Day a lifetime contract.
Absolutely.
Ha, 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 ha.
Absolutely.
And it's like this tongue in cheek. Everything's so cyclical. I continue to say that. Like, college athletics is just such a
Well, and that's why,
cycle.
and that's why, and you've said this repeatedly, is you just got to bask in it. You just got to
enjoy the
because,
hell out of this.
because I have cousins who went to Clemson, and a couple years ago we were together for a family reunion. Hadn't seen them in like 5 years, and I was like, "What is it like to be a Clemson fan?" Like, it's amazing. Like, we're on top of the world. And my older cousin was like 3 years older than me, so he was like, he was probably in mid-40s at the time. He's like, "This is the greatest stretch of all time, and like it's never going to end." Well, guess what? It ended.
It ended.
And now they're like trying to get back just to be the best team in the ACC. So it probably will end at some point, but like that's why you just got to enjoy the hell out of it.
And the thing is it will end at some point. No, Michigan's not just going to go away completely, but at the same time, we still don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to be back next year. We still don't know if they're going to suspend him for a season or more. We still don't know a lot of things out there. So Michigan fan, take it from me, guy wearing green and white, sponsored by Nike. Just enjoy the hell. Go to Indiana. If you haven't been, go.
Yeah.
Like, just go. I mean, Iowa fans are going to go there, but they're going to get their butts whooped. Like, you guys should absolutely.
21.5 point favorites.
Oh, I mean, it's like you guys are minus 12,000 on the money line or something.
I saw
so
Kirk Curran
crazy
say
like
we've
that.
always been an underdog.
Oh,
but like, don't discount us. The whole thing.
Sure.
And I'm like, Kirk, look, I would hear you on that if the over-unders the last like 6 weeks weren't 25 and 28 because they know that I was going to score 10 to 15 points.
I believe that the over-under is like 36.5.
So
and
they're expecting Michigan
Mi-
to win like 28-7 type of thing.
And so the over-under for Iowa's portion is like 6.5.
Wow.
So they're not even expected to score a touchdown. And they won't. And they won't score a touchdown. They barely scored a touchdown against Michigan State's porous defense.
Yeah.
Iowa is going to get punted out
13
of Indianapolis.
13-10 they beat Nebraska.
Oh my, it's going to be
bad.
It's going to be so bad. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is if Michigan gets what is the Rose Bowl the championship game this year?
No,
Or is
I
it
think
the
it's a semifinal.
Go buy your tickets right now.
Yeah,
and like get a refundable airfare right now. Do it right now.
And I
second
think
for
what
that
you're
game.
going to see, I think there's a pretty decent chance is that Michigan will get the Pac-12 champion. There will be a little bit of like nostalgic put the Big Ten versus Pac-12, and so Michigan
and Michigan hasn't been to the Rose Bowl since.
Let's
my
see. So
gosh!
after the 2006 season, they went, and then I think after that was when it became like part of the college football playoffs. So
But
but
they didn't go back and play at Pasadena.
No, they have not been back since 2006.
Guys,
I don't believe.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
It's a magical
if you
experience.
have the means, if you can do this, go right now. Stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Go and get a refundable airfare from whoever airline you choose to go and get tickets. And if they get placed in the Rose Bowl for their semifinal game, which I believe that they could, because it doesn't matter, right?
This year, the semifinals are on January 1st, too. So you're talking about
go, because you may never go again. And here's the story. Here's a quick story to tell you this. So when my parents, they met at Michigan State, like they had my sister and I, and in 1988, 89, whatever year they went to the Rose Bowl, I was 5 or 6 years old. And my mom and dad said, we're not going to take the kids. We'll take them the next time.
Oh,
we're going to take the kids the next time.
Wow.
So they left us with a baby. I don't even remember this. Like they left us with some babysitter. They went and had a great time at the granddaddy of them all. And we didn't go back until 2015.
Yeah.
And 2000. Yeah, well, it was technically the 2014 season that was on New Year's Day in 2015. But I remember when my dad and I went to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game, and the memory. This is what I'm saying to you guys: like, ride this, spend the money. Like, even if you're like scraping pennies together to do this, do it because you hope, you pray you're going to be like, oh, Michigan's going to win 5 in a row. We're going to win. We're going to roll through the Big Ten forever.
You never know.
And at some point, like you're coming off the cliff, and you just have to know that the sustained success will eventually. It'll eventually fall off. And I'm not saying that's going to happen next year or the next year. I'm just saying at some point, and it's like, now if you can do this, go. Because the memories I have with my dad, like crying at Lucas Oil when they beat Ohio State to go to the Rose Bowl, going to the Rose Bowl, going to the parade, going and tailgating with all these people I hadn't seen in years on the golf course, going in there, watching them beat Stanford. Like, I'll never forget it.
Justin, I was at the national championship in 98, the 97 one. I went with my older brother who died 6 months later.
Oh my gosh.
And and we are, I mean, I can tell this story another time, but like we ended up getting corporate seats. My dad had a client of his who had risen up pretty high at Merrill Lynch, and he ended up giving us like everything. Like,
Wow.
we got first class tickets on the flight. We got a suite at the Universal Studios Hotel, which like room service was included. We got like a car that took us to the game, and then we were in row 2 on the 50-yard line. And we watched Michigan beat Washington State to win the national championship. My brother, who had brain cancer, ended up suffering a seizure after the game and like was blocking traffic. And we had to, I immediately went into like, I knew what to do because, you know, one of the things is you got to like, he can't control his body. And like, so I'm holding his like head and the whole thing. And like, thankfully people got out of their cars, and a couple people got out of their cars were like in the medical space, and they were just like over and like helping. And a police officer got out and he's like directing traffic around us. But like, this was, so like, I suffered like the full roller coaster, the greatest highs. And then my brother's having this low. And then unfortunately, this was January 1st, 1998, and he died in July of 1998. So like, yeah, like I have that memory the rest of my life. I tell the story, I tell it in a lot more detail than that. But it's incredible. And then I went back in 2000, after the 2003 season, they lost to USC. When after that, after the 2006 season, they also lost to USC. And I don't think they've been there since then.
No,
So
they haven't.
100% go. Let me take you back to the Michigan Ohio State game for two things. One, two things happened that were, to me, really special in that game. One of them was, I didn't see the replay. Apparently they didn't show it on Fox. They didn't show it at the Big House. But apparently Zach Zinner's injury was like grotesque.
Yeah, they didn't show it again. I was actually out doing some yard work at halftime, and I didn't get back in time. I was still doing stuff, and all I saw is I came in, and they were like, they came back from break. Gus Johnson said, everyone's on the field, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? And like, there's like the carts out there, and like the Michigan players are, you know,
Right
out by the hash marks on the knee, and Ohio State's on the knee on the sideline, and they were like, Gus Johnson said, welcome back to the Big House. We are not going to show you the replay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to get in the details. I heard JJ McCarthy describe it. If you want to hear how he described it, it's pretty gnarly.
It's gonna be chills.
And so they didn't show it on the Big House, but you know, you were talking about JJ McCarthy. They showed this. I think they showed this on the TV broadcast. They certainly showed it in replays afterwards. But like, he's over there, like standing there with the Zinner's parents, and he's like giving Zach Zinner's mom a hug, and he's like talking to his dad, and the whole thing, like showing that type of compassion in that moment, like giving them everything that they needed from JJ McCarthy. And then the very next play was, you could argue, was the most important play of the game, because Michigan had done relatively nothing on the ground at that point. Maybe a couple of JJ scrambles. Blake had gone for like 4 or 5 yards on a couple of things, but nothing over 10 yards. And he goes for 20 something yards for the touchdown, gets through a hole, breaks a tackle, sprints to the corner of the end zone. Like, I mean, that is magical stuff.
Didn't he flash his numbers into his number?
He did flash his number. And Zinner, you know, someone was saying afterwards, this didn't come from Zach Zinner, but I was reading like different things on Twitter, but said that like as he's going up the tunnel, he heard the stadium explode in eruption. And it was like, what happened? They scored a touchdown, right? Like, how cool is that happened?
Cool.
And that was, you know, then it made it 24-17. And then honestly, I think was really, really special is that this Michigan team has not been the big bully, has not been bludgeoning. They did it against Penn State, but that was really the only time all year that it was the running game just overpowered. They got the ball with 8:05 left in the fourth quarter, up by 3, 27-24, and they went on a 7-minute drive. A 7-minute drive where it was like little just pieces, okay? They had one long run with Blake Corum that went for like 12 or 14 yards, and he stayed in bounds. But everything else was a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? It was 4 yards here, 5 yards here, 3 yards, going for it on fourth down, like doing all these little things. JJ throwing back to Cornelius Johnson across. Like, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It sucked the life out of Ohio State. It gave them a minute to go. They came down. They had 2 long completions and then the interception by Rod Moore. And yeah, I tell you what, I don't know that there is a better feeling in the world than after the game is over with and you're leaving the crowd, you're leaving the stadium, and just to be surrounded by that many Michigan fans, and every single one of them, you're like, go blue, handshakes, fist bumps. You know, people are honking their horns. And I got to say, because this is back to your Roman Wilson comment, you're walking past all these Buckeyes, all of them, they're just completely dejected. You know what you say?
Nothing.
Nothing. You just walk past them, you look, maybe give them a little wink, little smile,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, they're at the end, man. Like
Yep.
they're absolutely there. Like,
Because you guys were there not more than 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like you lost like what 7 in a row or something like that. Like
oh yeah,
and-
from
and
2012 to 2019.
that's why we continue to harp on this whole like enjoy the absolute shit out of this
Yeah.
and do whatever it is you really feel like you need to do to enjoy it. For me, I would be like you and just like that's how I was when Michigan State was on its run against Michigan all those years. Don't really have to say a whole lot, kind of just winking the smile. I actually tweeted at 3:32 going into that final drive. My money is on McCord throwing a pick here to seal it.
Oh wow.
I know. And then somebody said that they bet me. They bet it for me saying that, and the guy he won. So I told him to Venmo
Wow.
me. So
Wow.
we'll see. We'll see.
You
if
know,
that
Kyle
happens,
McCord
but-
played a great game.
Great.
Well, he had one until that last pick, and he got hit. He got hit when that
No,
happened.
that throw is not completely on him. But,
But
like,
he was really good from after the first pick until that last pick. He was
Yeah.
really on.
he was solid. He was solid. I just knew like so when I said last week, you know, of course I got like a bunch of Michigan fans
Yeah,
in my
whatever.
mentions. Yeah, I know. But I didn't really think that in depth about Kyle McCord because he's kind of been like not really like you see what CJ Stroud's doing in the NFL right now. You knew what Haskins had or
Dwayne
Haskins had
yeah.
done when he was the quarterback, and then you have Kyle McCord, and it's like what a difference. Like as far as like the mobility factor, maybe the arm strength is not the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
It's still, but I kind of discounted that element of it, thinking that he might be better. Like sometimes when you think of Ohio State, you think of like these, you know, 5-star quarterbacks, and McCord is that. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I didn't think enough about Kyle McCord and knowing that he wasn't some game. He's not there yet.
Yeah.
Like JJ's got the experience, and that was like a massive edge for JJ over McCord.
Well, to
in
that
moment.
point too, I mean, if you looked at it and you'd say, look, well, Kyle McCord threw for, you know, yes, he had the 2 picks, but he threw for like 280 yards, and Marvin Harrison got a touchdown and 118 yards and the whole thing. JJ probably had the 3 best passes of the game.
Oh,
like-
that needle.
The needle to Roman Wilson is as good of a throw. When he threw, like in the crowd, we were on the opposite side, so you couldn't really see. And all of a sudden, they were putting their hands up for a touchdown. I don't know how he fit that in. Like he did that a couple times against Michigan. He's done that a couple times against everybody, but insane throw.
Insane throw.
And then I think it was either the last drive or the second to last drive when he was like rolling far to his right and threw it across his body to Cornelius Johnson for.
Now that was almost picked off though.
It was.
That was
It
a little,
was.
a little shaky because I saw that, and even like Klatt was like, he should not have thrown
Yeah.
that football.
Right.
But
He had
made
a couple,
the play.
He had a
Made the
couple
play.
nice throws to Colston Loveland. He had the one run. I think it was on the touchdown series where Blake went up ahead, where he would scramble out to the right. There's a lot of questions about how much health he was at, and then he actually cut across the grain and like deked out 2 Buckeyes and picked up like 15 to 18 yards instead of just picking up like 7 or 8 yards. Like he made enough really big plays in the game, and the defense made enough really big plays in the game. Again, it wasn't the perfect game, but in this game, you don't have to be. You just got to be better than the team opposite you.
Exactly.
And you in Michigan was 3 plays better, 4 plays better, whatever it was, 2 plays better than Ohio State. And yeah, a lot of that's going to fall on Ryan Day because the end of the first half, not being aggressive, letting the clock run down when he could have gotten a little bit closer.
3 points would have been a big difference in that end of the
Absolutely.
game, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, trying to tie it instead of trying to, win the game with a touchdown. There were a couple of times, and I'm sure he's gonna, that's where Buckeyes are gonna be all over him for the next 365 days. And as a Michigan fan, just what a place to be in. You got to put your arm up, hail. Now your coach is coming back. The Big Ten punishment is over with. Whatever the NCAA is going to do, they're not going to do it this year.
Mm-hmm.
So as Justin has said multiple times, like just enjoy it. As I've said, just go out there and win the whole effing thing. Like just soak it all up for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll find out who Michigan is going to play in the College Football Playoff. Like I said, I think it could very much well be whoever the Pac-12 champion is. We won't get into the playoff rankings. We'll probably talk about them in our pod later this week to see
Sure.
where everything shakes out. Because, I'm curious where they drop Ohio State to. To me, like it's
They're
SEC champion is in, Pac-12 champion is in, Michigan is in, and then most likely Florida State is in if they
Beat Louisville.
beat Louisville. If they win and Alabama beats Georgia, I don't know. I don't know how you leave out a undefeated ACC
An
champ.
undefeated Power 5 team.
Right.
Will always get into the playoff.
You would have
Always.
pandemonium. You'd have pandemonium. And I know they would say like, oh, well, Jordan Travis isn't there, but like, who cares?
No. That doesn't matter. You're undefeated. You could have 12 different starting quarterbacks and they all lose.
Yep.
And then some kid comes in off from math class and he leads you to a victory.
Plus
Just because you don't have your stars
Yeah.
playing the game does not mean that you discredit winning football games.
Plus, the backup looks good enough, right? Like, he's got a good arm. He's made a couple of
I
plays.
mean, Florida could have just totally all right. Forget other teams. We'll talk about them later.
Sure.
Come on, I'm having a
you're-
good day too.
Okay.
Let's talk about me for a second.
Michigan State. We talked about it multiple times. I know you were really hoping for the Urban Meyer thing, but as we said, if you weren't going to get Urban Meyer, Jonathan Smith to me was a Plan A candidate.
He was the
Love
Plan
this
A
guy.
candidate.
Love this guy. And we had heard some other names, Mike Elko and Dave Clawson and Jake Dicker from Washington State. To me, when I looked at it, and I said as a Michigan fan, there's one guy to me that looks like he knows how to build a program, sustain a program, goes up against, I know people are like, oh, we lost 31-7. Last year he beat Oregon, okay? Like,
Right.
like knows how to go up against a rival.
By the way, that's a really good Oregon team.
Yeah, like if he's going to go to Michigan State and say, hey, we're going to challenge, maybe not right away, we're not talking 2 years from now, maybe even 3, but like maybe 4 years, something like that, depending on how the transfer portal goes. Like, go up against Michigan, go up against Penn State, go up against Ohio State, go up against USC. It looks a little fraudulent, but this is the guy. This is the guy. You've got to be absolutely ecstatic.
I'm thrilled, and I did some deep dive reading. David Harns from Spartans Illustrated. He wrote like a nice long article on like how this whole process played out and how Alan Haller has done just an absolute magical job of keeping this under wraps, having like the conversations with, and it's what's funny because like and the press conference is on Tuesday at noon. I'm going down to it or over to it, I should say. To learn more about, to hear him talk, to see, I need to feel like I know him more. And like, so going there and like having an opportunity to meet him and all those different things. So it'll be, but I look at it from this perspective. All right. What does Michigan State always need? The chip on the shoulder. They're never Michigan. They're never going to be Michigan. We have understood and accepted that the brand values are different as far as national exposure, and Michigan has 1,001 wins now. Like, Michigan State's not there. Like, I get that. And again, I'm not unhappy about that. That's just the reality of the situation. You need somebody who can understand that you're not the biggest program in the state. You can be, but you'll never be.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Michigan State could win 10 in a row against Michigan, and it'll always be Michigan first. It's just the way that it is around here. I know that from personal experience. Then you need somebody who knows the culture of being 1B, 1C, 2A, whatever level you want to take it to. Then you need somebody who can actually take chicken shit and make chicken salad. Because that's what Mark D'Antonio did. And that's what he's done at Oregon State. When he took over that program 6 years ago, I had an offer years ago. This was years ago. I had an offer to go and cover the Beavers for a TV station out in the Pacific Northwest. And I was going to be their like Oregon State beat reporter or whatever, KEZI. And I talked to like the sports director and I was like, so I get to cover Oregon, right? He's like, well, we'll bring you in for like some things, but your main beat is going to be Oregon State. So I started doing research. Oregon State had like 1 6-win season in like the last 20 years. They were you want to talk about like, and here's the thing. A lot of Michigan fans and Ohio State fans and stuff, they say, oh, Michigan State's like a MAC level program or whatever, right? Well, there is no MAC in the Pacific Northwest. Like, you want to play football from that area, you're either going to a Mountain West school, which is better than the MAC, or you're going to the Pac-12. Well, Oregon, USC, UCLA, all the big schools out there aren't taking these 2-star, 3-star kids unless they're like somebody to actually play. Oregon State would take all of those. And they never won. until Jonathan Smith got there and he took over what was 85 scholarship players of 2- and 3-star kids. And he took them some time. Now, I don't think it's going to take him as long as some people are projecting it to take him.
Not with the transfer portal.
Not with the way that recruiting is also working. Transfer portal, he's going to bring. There's already a couple of kids that were committed. I looked at Oregon State's recruiting class. They got a pretty good class built up right now. And how many of those kids are going to follow the coach, or are they staying with the brand?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I think, I would speculate that most of them will probably follow the coach because the brand is about to be stuck in
purgatory forever.
the desert here. Justin, to your point, so he's had 3 straight winning seasons. And the last time Oregon State had 3 straight winning seasons was 2007 to 2009. So it had been more than
right around the time I was looking at that job.
Mike Riley, who's a pretty good coach for them. They had some sustained success. They had 4 straight seasons of winning records from 2006 to 2009. But you go and look, you're right. You go and look through their history. I mean, they've probably got more double-digit lost seasons than any program in the Pac-12. I would probably argue. I'd have to go.
Maybe Washington State.
Washington
State.
But
they had Mike Leach for a while, and that was obviously high flying.
I mean, it's abysmal. He inherited a program that had gone 1-11 the year and 0-9 in the conference. So to me, and I know people I've heard Michigan fans, and God, man, here's my thing, Justin. Like I said from the get-go, I've been saying for weeks, this is the guy. Like, if you can get Jonathan Smith, what a home run hire for Michigan State. I posted something about what a great hire is for Michigan State. I get all these Michigan fans like, oh, he's got a losing record. Like, if that's the best they can get, and the whole thing. And I'm like, guys, like, you can acknowledge. All right. It's not the worst thing in the world to say, like, damn, Michigan State just hired a really good coach, a builder of programs. Oh, he's not even better than Tucker. Tucker coached 1 season at Colorado, had done nothing at Colorado, was all hype.
Smoke, mirrors.
Yeah. Jonathan Smith built a program from nothing. Like, going to Corvallis, and what you're looking at was like, it wasn't even smoldering, like the fire had put out the whole stadium.
Still blazing.
It was like you showed up there and there was just a gigantic hole in the middle of the ground. And they're like, hey, good luck.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's all that there was. And he built this thing up to the point where he was challenging. Every team the last 2 years was saying, the team we don't want to play.
Well,
the team we don't want to play.
And some of them got popped.
And some of them lost.
And so what that signifies to me is that he understands what it takes to compete and be that nasty. Like, we don't care who you are. We don't care what the front of your jersey says. This is who we are. We're going to be tough. And listen, Michigan State fans, you don't need me to sit here and tell you that watching Jay Johnson call all this bullshit for the last couple of years, and even at the end of Mark D'Antonio's tenure, and even during some of the height of it, it was still this like stuck in the mud, like archaic, like offensive systems. In the new world, when we're watching Ohio State do it, we saw Michigan make the transformation and finally kind of start employing some of this new world football offensive techniques. And Michigan State's just sitting there going, oh, come on, can we try that? Like, can we get there? Now, I'm not saying bring back, like, John L. Smith, like rootin' tootin', guns a-blazing. But Jonathan Smith has obviously figured out how to play offensive football because he is getting the Beavers to score a lot of points. And their defense is tough.
Yeah.
And their defense is nasty. They don't win every game, but you know what? A lot of teams don't win every game. Very hard. Very few teams win every game. So I'm excited for him to come in here. I think it's yes. I mean, I think I was part of the more tongue-in-cheek Urban fan. Like, I didn't really know if that was ever going to be like a long-term-ish. I remember saying it. Yeah. Come in for 2 or 3 years and see what you can wrestle up. And then, he's probably going to get out with another scandal. But if he wins, doesn't maybe matter. This guy seems to me like, okay, you're now in the biggest, second, however you want to, SEC, Big Ten. Those are the 2 conferences that are the premier conferences left in college football, at least for right now.
Yeah.
You're in it. You get to still recruit the same area because you get to say to these kids in the Pacific Northwest, come play for me at Michigan State.
Right.
We're going to be playing Washington. We're going to be playing
Oregon.
USC,
you're
still going to have a connection with the Pac-12 area in your home area.
Yeah.
Now, what his job is to bring in, he's got a great staff that he's bringing so far. Hasn't filled it out totally yet. That'll be more clear as the week goes on. But he's got to get some Midwest roots. He's got to get some Midwest guys. I think he's keeping Courtney Hawkins. I think he's keeping Harlan Barnett as
Really?
yes. I
Wow.
think that because at least for the interim,
Yeah.
this transform and Harlan Barnett. Listen, I know I've been little rough on old Harlan. But that dude bleeds green more than I
Well,
do, and he is
yeah.
a Spartan through and through.
Absolutely. If he coaches into the right role,
Right,
he's a great fit for that.
and we'll see.
yeah.
We'll see.
It's always a struggle because you never want to. I remember when Michigan moved on from Red Berenson and the new coach came in. Now he's summarily been dismissed. But you didn't. He immediately got rid of the two assistants that were there, and the reason you do it is because you never want to have an assistant coach who wanted your job, right? And to some degree, every coach wants their job, but a little bit of like, well, I don't want to say, can you trust that guy? But like, what is he going to second guess? Any of those things like that. So we'll see how long that marriage lasts. You bring up a great point about recruiting out west, because I've heard so many, again, Twitter, and people are like, oh, he's got no Midwest ties. Good luck trying to win. But he's already played the 4 teams joining the Big Ten. So he knows those programs better than Michigan, Ohio State,
100%.
Penn State do. And one of the reasons the Big Ten is adding all those programs is not just the billions of dollars of TV revenue. It's because it's easier for Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, whoever, to go over to California and say, we've always been able to recruit here, but now you get to play these guys. You're coming back in the whole time. I was talking to someone who's, someone was cutting my hair a couple weeks ago, and she had a relationship towards the young man that's the quarterback at UCLA. It's from Detroit.
Oh, Dante.
Dante Moore, and she was saying like how hard it is that every game that they play, they got his family has to fly to the West Coast.
Right.
And she's like, it's gonna be so nice next year that 5 of his games are gonna be somewhere in the Midwest.
Right.
And so that allows you to recruit everywhere. And again, and it's not the age of walking into Farmington Hills Harrison, walking into Detroit, Crockett, and going like, hey, coach, it's been good for the last 10 years. Who you got for me this year?
Yeah.
Like that
It's
doesn't
over.
That doesn't really happen anymore.
Now, I do still think regional recruiting is still obviously like important to like understand. Michigan State got away from recruiting Ohio, and that obviously is a hotbed. Michigan has a lot of Ohio guys. Ohio State, of course, has a lot of Ohio guys. I'm not saying that they're going to completely go out there. I'm just simply saying it opens up the door for Michigan State to have a little bit more of a national reach when it comes to not only like brand, but also like the recruiting. Because Tucker was trying to get out there and get some of those Washington guys. He got a couple of them. So it'll be really interesting. Like I said, he's talking on Tuesday at noon out in East Lansing. He's already there assembling his staff. We're going to talk more about that after in the next episode of the pod. But I think, Michael, we have gone through 13 weeks of hell, quite frankly, for both teams at times. Now, your team won every game, so congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. My team won 4 games, so go team. But what a first regular season for the pod.
It's been.
This is why we did this damn thing, right?
Can we, if we were putting together our Christmas list or our dream for, the New Year's resolutions and things like that, I would like the Michigan State game in 2024 to mean more.
Oh, I'd love that.
I would like for all the off-season drama to be put in its place, and for us just to be able to talk, not necessarily just about football, because there's always going to be stuff that's going on. But how many podcasts have we had to do where it's not about football, where it is about 95% of them? And again, like, you're not tuning into this podcast to necessarily get our breakdown of the X's and O's, and it is about emotion. It is about rivalry and the whole thing. But my God, man, like, we've opened up so many of them. Like, well, here's the latest in the NCAA investigation. Oh, they just suspended Jim Harbaugh for this. The Big Ten that. Mel Tucker's attorneys are saying, like,
yeah,
I could go without that for the 2024 I Love You But You're an Idiot podcast. And we're not going away. We will be doing college basketball, and we've got college football still to talk about.
100%.
After, we'll have another podcast later this week, and then after the Big Ten championship and see how everything shakes out, because the college football playoff will be revealed on Sunday. There's gonna be a lot to talk about. I still like your team, Washington. You know, I know that they're kind of down a little bit. I would pick Oregon this weekend in the Pac-12 championship.
It's like a 9.5 point Oregon
I saw
spread.
that.
And I was saying to my buddy the other day, if you're in the gambling space, why don't you, if you think Washington, and I think highly of Washington, and obviously the odds makers or whatever, but like even if you like took it like where Washington like -2.5, bump that 9.5 to down to 2.5 or even 3.5. So if they like lose by 3, it's another close game. You could make some really good value if you believe in the Huskies the way that I do. I quit gambling because I lost all my money. But if I were a gambling man, I would think about that.
I just think, too, you get through the slog that is the regular season for all these teams. And even if they were leaking a little bit at the end, like Washington was, you get to take a deep breath, refocus. It's all about football. You go to, like, they're going to Las Vegas. Michigan and I were going to be in Indianapolis. I think the SEC is in Atlanta. Or is the ACC in Atlanta?
No. SEC is at Mercedes, and the ACC, I think, is where the heck is the ACC game? We'll figure it out by the time we get together.
But we'll have a good, like, enjoy the Jonathan Smith press conference. Congratulations to your team. Great hire.
The victors go the spoils. Congratulations to, and Michigan fans, thank you for putting up with me all season long. I know I can be a little, but at the same time.
What? I've seen so many people say to me, like, man, Justin's a lot more rational than I thought he was. And I'm like, he is. Like, that's what both of us are. We've always been more rational.
We're not.
But
at the same time, it's fun to give each other a little,
and we're not going to take hot shots at each other. That's never what this is about. But he can look at, I mean, both of us are just going to look at it from our perspective, but we're going to look at it with some objective eyes too. So Justin, let me say this on the NCAA and the Big Ten too, is, because you said to me at one point, just take your punishment. Well, now the Big Ten has doled it out. Like, punishment's over with.
From the Big Ten.
And I know, like, I've seen, like, people on Twitter, you guys are still cheaters. Everything is still tainted, blah, 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 blah. To me, it's like, look, man, like, the reputational damage to Michigan, what the players have gone through, what all the fans have gone through, Jim Harbaugh being suspended for 6 games, the whole thing. You're like, I'm done with taking. I was never a big fan of taking crap from other fans. Like, I understand looking objectively at my program, but, like, I'm done taking it. Like, if you say something to me, like, guns blazing now, okay? Because the punishment has been doled out.
At me,
the trashing of everything Michigan, like, we've taken our punishment. If there's more people who get found out and they get fired or the NCAA suspends, so be it. But right now, I'm done with it. I have got the Big Ten championship. I've got the college football playoff, and I've been defending my program and defending my players. But, like, you can take all this other bullshit and just throw it in the trash. I ain't dealing with it. No Michigan finish to deal with it. Focus on your team, enjoy it, soak it up. And if a Buckeye comes at you, give him the middle finger and tell him 0-3, fuckers.
I love you, man.
But you're an idiot.